Good afternoon and welcome back. We're live with the action in the Supreme Pool Series. And there's been a bit of a break from the mainstream table, which I'm sure you guys are aware of because there was a game going on between Tom Cousins and Callum Singleton that went to Hill. I'm sure a lot of you watched it. Really great finish. A couple of really nervy frames, but Tom came through. And now this is loser's side qualification to get back into the main draw for the last 8. What a big game. And this really is the epitome of the strap line for the event, which you can see blazoned across the table. The Supreme Pool Series, when two worlds collide. And this really is everything about those two worlds. You've got the young gun, Tom Cousins. Incredible talent in the game. Playing one of the old pros. And he's shot now. Darren Appleton, who's just about achieved everything in the game. Huge match for both players. And in pool, the billing doesn't get much higher than this. We saw Darren just getting pipped to the post by Jason Shaw in the last game on the stream table. And I was having a chat with him outside. Just still that little bit of cue ball control that he's missing, having been playing in America with the bigger balls for the last 11 years. So quiet in the arena, you could literally hear a pin drop. Even though the crowd are packed around the table. This is a race to 8. The bookie has priced it up. He has Tom Cousins as the favourite. I think it was 4-6. Darren Appleton 11-10. I'm going to talk really quietly as I'm conscious that the players can hear. There's 4 games currently in action. Stefan Rosidi is playing Rona McCarthy. Phil Harrison playing Scott Gillespie. Adam Davis, Liam Dunster, Tom Cousins, Darren Appleton. And I would suggest between those players, there's probably 8, at least 8 World Championship titles. Darren Appleton's got 4. Tom Cousins 2. Adam Davis. Liam Dunster. I'm sure there's some juniors in there as well. So, Darren Appleton, nicknamed Dynamite, age 42. uses a Jason Owen cue. Jason Owen is the main sponsor. You can see just behind Tom's legs there was the logo for Jason Owen, the main sponsor for this event. It is called the Jason Owen Open. As I mentioned, 4 World Championship titles at 4 different disciplines. One of the best players that this country has ever produced. He's playing the in-form Tom Cousins. Just the 2 World Championship titles for Tom. He's 28 years old and he's top cat. He also uses a Jason Owen cue. So, a break dish from Darren in the first. Tom goes in off in the second. Just one visit. You can see Lee Kendall in conversation, the organizer of the event in the red shirt. There he is. Darren calling for extension as he decides which route he wants to take, and already that's a mistake. Can't now. Well, no easy pots. He's got this long one down the rail.
Seconds. 5, 4.
And on the subject of world titles, we've got another one sat in the commentary box now. In fact, more than one, several. How many did you get in the end? 4?
I got 4, yeah. I got 3 at the World Rules and 1 at the IPA, 1 at the Black Ball.
Yeah, it's Gareth Potts is now joined us on commentary. So Tom Cousins versus Darren Appleton. I mean, the first game of the day was Darren versus Jason, and now straight into this one. The action just keeps coming.
Yeah, and I was interested to see how this one sort of goes, because obviously Tom at the minute is the red hot player, isn't he? I mean, obviously went for the most in the Calcutta, and he's now battled his way back through, obviously after the loss with the loser side. And Darren, I spoke to him after the match with Shaw, and he said that he played really bad. And I spoke to him about that last shot that he played, getting onto the black, and I think he played it wrong. I mean, he said that he sort of aimed for the red on the cushion to hit, and the angle was so narrow to hit that red on the cushion. He should have been aiming for the other red in the middle of the table, playing it with a trace of side. That's a good shot there. Yeah, and he should have been playing it with a trace aside to aim for the other red in the middle of the table, and there was everything for being short, because if he's short, he's just dead straight on the double. Yeah. Obviously, the worst place you can finish is where he did, and it was criminal really to over hit it. If you under hit it, you're on the double, And he agreed with that, and he just said obviously when he's under pressure he's second guessing. And I did say to him when I spoke to him the other day about it, I said, because it's not coming natural to you, what happens is the human body reverts back to what comes natural to it. When the human body's under pressure, it reverts back to what comes natural to it. And if seeing the natural angles isn't coming natural to you, you've got no almost default setting to revert back to, which is a huge point in that, because there he said I got down and thought the cue ball's going in a certain direction, and I was like, is it going there? He said in the end I just wasn't sure the line that the cue ball was going to take off the yellow, which was exactly my point of, okay, in practice he would have landed on that, but when you're under pressure and you're second guessing yourself, he hasn't got no sort of natural thing to fall back on like he would have. Like I said, if you were playing on an American table, for example, you would have obviously been dead straight on that black because you naturally know where it's going, whether you're under pressure or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. But currently leading 2-0. And he really does time those balls well.
Yeah, he hit that okay, not great. He missed the front ball, and the reason I say that is because the cue ball hit halfway up this side cushion, which tells you that he didn't obviously make contact with the front ball flush, which is what you're trying to do. And what that does do is you do lose a lot of power that sort of gets generated, where if you hit the front ball flush, all of the power gets generated through the pack. Obviously, if you catch the ball slightly off centre, you do lose some of the power off to whichever side you mishit it from.
And two of the best breaks in the game on show here. Darren was breaking pretty well during his first game. Tom Cousins is renowned for having an absolute beast of a break.
Yeah, Cousins has got, and I've said it for years, he's got one of the best breaks I'd ever seen. And the break when I played was something which I'd worked on a lot, and something which, you know, I had a good break, and it was something that I'd worked on, and I'd said it for years, having watched Tom, of the way he hits them, as good as I've seen on an English 8-ball table. But I just can't help loving the way that Malin breaks. I watched his match last night from home, actually, the end of it against Farnsworth, and it was a really high standard. But I just loved the way that he controlled the break. He was hitting them hard, but a lot of the time he was just parking the cue ball right in the middle of the table.
And that was a great game last night. If there's any matches you haven't had a chance to catch up with, you will find them all on YouTube. And I can recommend that you watch that game. It was Chris Melling versus Mark Farnsworth. One of the great battles of the tournament so far. Some of the clearances that Chris took out were just quite ridiculous.
Yeah, he's great to watch, and but the problem with Chris, I say the problem is being ultra critical, is even when he was playing English 8-ball full time and at his best, he was always a little bit loose with the cue ball, and that's exactly what he was last night against Mark. He was loose with the cue ball.
Yeah. And that's ultimately what cost him.
Just to let you know, they've only just started the final of the losers section. But what about this for a story? Stefan Vasidi, he has bought half of himself in the Calcutta, I think for £250, he told me. So if he wins this match, obviously he goes into the quarterfinals and he's on £3,000. But on top of that, he's already on 5% for being finished, or for finishing the best place non-elite player.
Yeah.
Plus £250. So I think he's on, I don't know if he said he's on 2.5 already.
Yeah.
If he wins this match, that's 5.5.
Yeah.
Plus 1,000 for the quarterfinals. That's 6.5 for his £250 buy-in.
Which is more than the winner's going to take.
So
well, unless they've got some of themselves
yeah.
in Calcutta.
So if that match there for Stefan Rosidi is an unbelievably big game.
Yeah.
In every and on top of that, still in the tournament with a chance to go further.
I'm sure I overheard him saying it just about an hour or so ago when he came off his last win that earlier today he messaged the guy who had bought him, and I think he bought another 25%.
Yes, that's right. So to add to that, he's then messaged the guy and said, basically, do you want to sell me another 25%? And the guy said yes. So they've agreed a deal of another 200. So effectively, for £450, he owns 75% of himself.
I can't believe the guy would sell anything, to be honest.
Well, especially to sell him from the position he was in, because there was him and Callum,
yeah.
that were in the running for the highest placed non-elite. Obviously, Callum, I think when they did the deal, Callum was playing Tom Cousins. So, with all due respect, you would expect him to lose to Tom Cousins.
Yeah.
So he couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
So he was almost on a bit of a free go on Stefan. So I think the guy might need to have a word with himself on the business front there. But yeah, just an incredible story that for Stefan. And, you know, if he was to obviously win this tournament, he's on big dough for a £450 buy-in.
And the other thing is, I mean, for all you guys that weren't involved in the Calcutta this time, you will have another opportunity. There'll be another Calcutta during the next event for you to involve yourself in. Please do. In fact, I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be, but they are running this Calcutta before the draw. So you're buying a little bit blind because you don't know who your player's got, which adds a little bit of excitement to it as well.
It adds excitement to the Calcutta, but then also adds a lot of excitement to the draw.
Yeah.
So when the draw's then done, everybody that's obviously bought, well, everybody wants to watch the draw anyway, but everyone that's then, it gets that added interest. Everyone that's bought into the Calcutta has an even bigger interest in the draw.
It's amazing. It's the first time it's been used in earnest in this country. It's used quite heavily in the States also. They use it in Australia. And it's I can see it becoming a regular feature on the pool circuit. I can see a lot of tournaments now running a Calcutta. I think this has kind of set the precedent for the future. In fact, I did see Jeremy Cooper was playing a local event down in Cornwall, and they ran a Calcutta last weekend. So that I think even that raised about £1,500. It was just a very local event. So I think that's just going to grow and grow.
Yeah, I think I mentioned yesterday on here that I was talking to a couple of the American players, Van Bonen and Corey Jewell, and they were saying that in all of the events that they play, or most of the events that they play in America, they always run a Calcutta, which is a way of generating prize money in an event that hasn't particularly got much prize money. And if there wasn't a Calcutta, the event probably wouldn't even be worth playing in.
Yeah.
So it's something that sort of followed over from the States and from Australia. But one thing it does do, apart from add a load of money to the event, is it creates a huge amount of interest from people that maybe necessarily wouldn't have had an interest otherwise.
Yeah, I'm sure with some of the money that's been paid for the players, there's been quite a few people sat at home and also in the arena with their hearts in their mouths. It really is, well, it's huge. I mean, the winner of the Calcutta, I don't know the exact figure, but I think it's around about £22,000.
Yeah, I think it's around 22, and you know what? It's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, and 22,000 is, you know, that's a massive lump for someone. It's a new car, it's a holiday, it's a great big chunk off your mortgage. It's a huge amount.
Well, if you think of it, I think that certainly the more it goes on, the more people get to understand it. The bigger the pot is going to get. Now, for the grand final of this, it's going to be 50,000 or just over to the winner. Now, if you were to buy yourself in the Calcutta, and the pot was to be 100,000 of the Calcutta, which I think it will be at least of the grand final, so you're getting 50 plus for winning, and if you were to actually buy yourself outright, there's around another 35,000. So that's £85,000 for winning an English 8-ball tournament, which is, well, I mean, I started out playing English 8-ball when I was 7 years old, and that's the sort of thing that when I started playing that I dreamed of happening to the game.
Yeah.
And it was never going to happen with the people that were in charge when I was playing. That's the brutal truth of it. It was never going to happen for a lot of reasons with those people in charge, and now it is happening. And who knows where this can be in? Well, who knows where this can be this year, but who knows where it's going to go in next year. The publicity that it's had and the feedback that it's had already just after the first event has been amazing.
Yeah.
From all of the top players, from all of the fans, you know, even these 9-ball lads that have come over from America that have played in all the events, big and small, have all said what an amazing event it is, and that it's been, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And with the Calcutta prize money added to it, it just generates sort of, well, it generates life-changing amount of money. I mean, if you can win an English 8-ball event where you're clearing 85,000, no tax, obviously, no tax deducted at source.
Yep.
So you have to pay your own, but that's what the cleared prize is. It's snooker money.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Almost.
I mean, the tournament as a concept, or since its concept, has grown arms and legs. It started as 64 players, and here we are this weekend with 128. And like Gareth rightly says, where this goes next year, once more sponsors come on board and there's more interest surrounding the event, it's not just going to grow arms and legs, it's going to grow wings and fly. So, Darren with what is now fairly simple clearance, and this is going to be for 3-0 in a race to 8. Tom's going to need to establish himself in this match very, very quickly. Good stuff from Darren. Just picking up on a mistake there from Tom. As I say, it's 3-0. It is Tom's break, so you know, very little in it still. If Tom can break and dish here, and then Darren goes dry, and then all of a sudden the whole match has got a different complexion.
Darren seemed strangely, I mean, obviously, from the English 8-ball days, Darren would be sort of like one of the players that would be suicidal after losing a match. That was just his character and the way he is. After losing that match to Shaw, even though he did say he felt he played really, really bad, especially at the start of the match, and he said that he should have won easy and the standard wasn't the best, he was quite strangely sort of upbeat and quite normal after the match, and which is great in the way that you should be, especially having to go straight into the loser's match. And I think that's sort of showing here that, you know, yes, he lost, but, well, it hasn't affected him.
Yeah, it's probably something else to do with, you know, he's an older, kind of more mature person now, and he's been through the ringer a number of times, wins and losses, and he's kind of, you know, been around the block, so
no, I think
it's easier to take it in your stride, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because, you know, playing the American game, that can be brain damage at times.
Yeah.
with the nature of the game, some of the bad losses,
especially winner breaks. I mean, you just got to sit in your seat for frame after frame sometimes.
Yeah, some of the bad losses and bad beats, and some of the stuff that would happen to you. You know, you're travelling all over the world there playing a game which, is genuinely quite easy in the sense of, potting the balls and when the skill level, I understand there's a high skill level in certain aspects of it, but when the skill level of something is lower, then it does...
There's more variance.
There's more variance. It does narrow that gap from the good to the very good and downwards to the okay and the bad. So basically what I'm trying to say is you can lose to someone that was perhaps certainly at the Chinese 8 ball you wouldn't lose to.
Yeah.
So he would have experienced a lot of... I think that has built his character and certainly improved his temperament.
You can imagine there's times where Darren's probably, taken a 10-hour flight, gone somewhere and practiced and entered the tournament and been out of it within one match and travelling home again.
Well, exactly. The thought of having to travel the other side of the world to play a winner breaks, and the guy gets out and starts putting sort of 7 and 8 packs on you, and then you get back on the plane. To be honest, I couldn't think of anything worse. So I think that's a reason why he's perhaps improved in that department.
Yeah, probably more pragmatic now about those kind of things.
We were saying about how good Tom's break is, and obviously he's just gone off there. And this is going to be 4-0. Because this passes this, and he'll move the red out. Oh, he's potted it clean, but it doesn't really matter.
So just to let you know that Stefan Rosidi has taken the advantage over Ronan McCarthy's 3 frames to 2 up. All 4 of these games are being streamed, so you can find those streams on the playerspoolevents.com page. You'll find all 4 of those streams. So the other ones in action: Phil Harrison, Scott Gillespie. Scott's 2-1 up against Phil. Adam Davis, Liam Dunster. They're 1 frame apiece. So those are the 4 matches currently in progress. No worries.
So as I said, Tom wouldn't be coming back to the table there, and I had the cue ball on a penny there, really. And 4-0 is obviously a big difference, race to 8, than it is race to 11.
Yeah, 4-0. I mean, Darren was 4-0 down against Jason Shaw, but that was a race to 11. He managed to battle his way back into the game. So this is going to be a long road back for Tom now, especially if Darren gets a good break now.
As you can see, that's Darren's road to basically the losers section final, and the first round obviously against Clint, who is one of the best players, so he would have been obviously disappointed to have got that draw. When it came out, he'd have been disappointed to see that, but having got through that, you have to say, with no disrespect to the next 3 rounds that he played there, that Maschini, Brennan and Bedford, I'm sure, I don't know too much about any of them, to be honest, but I'm sure that they're all very good players. But he'd have certainly been over the moon with that draw to get to basically what was the final to the winners' final to qualify for the last 16. First match was against Clint, and then the last match against Shaw where he lost. But pretty good run to there. And the scoreline did reflect that. He did win all 3 of those matches comfortably.
Yep. He did. He breaks off frame number 5.
See, exactly the same as he did last time. The cue ball, it's halfway up that side rail. And that's definitely not what he's trying to do. He's trying to basically stun the cue ball back in a straight line. So what he's doing is, obviously, as he pulls the cue back, he's just slightly coming across it, which is making the cue ball catch the front ball, obviously, on the right-hand side as he sees it. Hence why it's hitting halfway up that side rail.
Yeah, I mean, the balls are still splitting well, but the power's just not getting transferred. They're not
losing the power, and what it's also losing is when you catch that front ball flush, those 2 wing balls track towards the middle. Now, when you're basically sort of almost catching the front ball half ball, that will change the direction and the dynamics of what is happening when the balls break.
So Tom gets a look at the table. He's not really had a chance to settle into the game yet, not to get his hand on the table.
And he'll be... he'd have ideally wanted that yellow that he's closest to pass the other yellow on the rail into the right corner. The fact that he's looking at reds tells me that that doesn't go, because if it did, he should definitely go yellows. And it looks like it goes to me from here, but obviously it didn't, because surely he would have played it. I think he'll still get the reds, but they're twice as hard as the yellows. I think any finish, especially on an English 8-ball table, can be made to look easy if you keep control of the cue ball. If you're putting the cue ball where you want it to be, and it's not flying sort of all around the world, if you like, then even a really tough finish can be made to look easy. And I think that's where the type of players like Malin, and maybe Shaw to a certain extent, because the cue ball is a little bit looser, and certainly Chris's is looser, some of the finishes are made to look a bit more extravagant and a little bit better than they actually are. To use to compare to that would maybe be a Phil Harrison, where when he's at his best, his cue ball is so tight that he's just right behind everything, and everything just looks sort of so clinical. And even one of those tough finishes, you just think, yeah, that was okay.
Yeah, I think I've said it before. It's all about economy of cue ball. It's if you could measure the distance that Phil Harrison's cue ball moves throughout a match compared to someone who's more flamboyant with the cue ball, then I bet there's some difference. Like someone like Chris Melling, he controls the ball well, but he doesn't mind using cushions. And
yeah, if it was buying a new car on a PCP and you had to put the mileage on, Chris Melling would have to be paying a little bit more for it.
For sure. Rob Chilton's still in the room. He's had a very good weekend, actually. He's just lost his game against Adam Davis in the loser's side, so he is now out. But hats off, he's taken some really big scalps over this weekend. He can take a lot of credit, take a lot of momentum into the next event.
This red does go into the left centre, but he won't be playing it now. He'll be playing it last, because he can't really do much with the cue ball. You can see it's tight. He doesn't want to be playing that at any sort of pace, so he'll just drop back over to somewhere where he is now. And this now just allows him to drop it in. real sort of distinctive feature of Tom Cousins' cue action is he doesn't really sort of cue up to the ball much, and he is a big distance away from the cue ball, because you can see there his tip is a good couple of inches away from the cue ball, which is unusual.
Yeah, we spoke about it when he was playing yesterday. He played Max Nosko, and Max has got very, very similar cue action. He cues a good couple of inches away from the ball, which means that, of course, when you play back through the ball, I think it was, I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was saying that when you cue back through the ball, it can sometimes affect your timing, because you'd be queuing up to the ball, pull your cue back, and then cue through to that same point.
Yeah, I'm a sort of quite a connoisseur of people's techniques and cue actions and all that sort of things. And yeah, what happens is you're effectively 2 inches away from where your strike pointer is going to be. So that's where a lot of people basically cue up. Well, I cue up quite close to the cue ball personally, and a lot of other people do. So your feel for the shot is when you on the top of the backswing, he's effectively pushing his cue 2 inches further than where he actually sets up the shot.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's not too many people that. What I find that happens to me is when I'm under pressure, I do get a little bit further back from the cue ball, because you're sort of conscious of feathering the cue ball. So when you're under the most extreme pressure, I personally come a little bit further back, sort of not deliberately, it's more subconsciously. But another player that does it is John Higgins, and he doesn't do too bad.
Yeah, yeah.
He's quite a distance away from the cue ball if you watch it. And somebody that was probably even further away from him was Paul Hunter. Paul Hunter used to cue a ridiculous amount away from the cue ball, and he was an absolutely great player as well. But if you watch somebody like Malin, he's very close to the cue ball, and I am personally, I'm quite close to it. Ronnie would be very close to it. But it's just obviously what works for you, and one thing you will find is people do get slightly further away the further the more pressure that they're under, and that's simply just because you're conscious of feathering the cue ball.
So you saw the route through that Tom had. We'll come back to that at the conclusion of this frame, just to reflect on the route he's taken. It's been a longer route than Darren for sure. He's come through the loser's side after losing late on Friday night to Rob Chilton. Scores around the room. Stefan Ricidi is 4-3 up against Ronan McCarthy. Phil Harrison 2 apiece with Scott Gillespie.
And Phil was 2-0 down. Phil was 2-0 down in that match.
Yeah.
So we've had the story that we told you about Stefan Ricidi owning half and then buying another 25%. We have had a message in from someone claiming that they're the person that owns him, and he hasn't bought half of himself. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, and we're probably best not to get involved in that. I'm only telling you what Stefan has told us.
And I overheard that conversation myself as well, so I know that Stefan has mentioned that he owns some of himself. But anyway, whatever. It's kind of irrelevant.
It's kind of irrelevant, and one thing that isn't going to change in that is whoever does own him, if he does win that match, he will be on 3,000.
Yeah.
The Calcutta, that doesn't change. Stefan's saying somebody else owns him and he's bought. Well, that's like you say, it's kind of irrelevant. Back to the pool, and Tom's just won a quick frame there to go 4-2. So within the space of probably 5 minutes or so, there he's nicked a couple back, and 4-2 right back in it.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that you won't find anybody talking about over this weekend is who owns who in the Calcutta. It's entirely it's run by the event, or it's governed by the event, but the contract is between yourself and the player, and the owner and the player, and it's absolutely your business. So we were just reporting back on some of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's the person who actually buys at the auction owns the player. That's who the money will be paid out to, and then the player. The rules are the player has 24 hours to buy himself, as a part of the legal rules behind the Calcutta. If the player declines to buy himself in that time, the person who's bought him doesn't have to sell him off after that period of time. And that's literally all there is to it. I understand there's a lot of other things that go on with people buying players at a certain price and selling them on to a profit, and that all adds to the Calcutta, but ultimately it's just the percentage gets paid out to the person that buys it, and what he does with it after then is up to him. See, that's a great view of the arena there, and there's in the background there's just the stream tables going on with the matches that are the losers final. And there's Lee, the sort of mastermind behind this event, and wow, see, so
he can't get it right, can he?
So you know what I was saying, Nick. He's 2 previous breaks, he's come across it the other side, and the cue ball's hit the left side rail as we look on the left-hand side. He'd have been conscious of that, and he'd have tried to correct it. What he's done there is overcorrected it by way too much and done straight and off in the opposite middle.
But you know, right from the first match when he played Clint Jansen, he just didn't seem to control the cue ball particularly well. Do you think it's a factor with that predator cue? Maybe you should try something different.
Well,
It's a big tip.
Well, exactly. That's one thing I was going to say to you. If you were saying to me he was breaking with a 7mm tip, I'd agree with you, because obviously finding the middle of the cue ball with such a small tip is harder to do than it is breaking with what must be, I don't know, a 13mm tip.
Yeah.
I mean, that must look like he's hitting the cue ball with a dustbin lid.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a lot easier to find the middle of a cue ball, especially on an English table where, you know, the balls are obviously a lot, and the cue ball's even smaller than the object ball. So the fact that he's coming across it, for me, it isn't because he's flicking a little bit of side on, it's because he's just cueing across the white and not catching the ball flush.
Okay. It's a nice shot from Tom, just opens up his difficult ball, opens up the frame for himself. This one a big frame, really. There's a race to 8. If Darren could have found a good break there, then, you know, 5-2 and 4-3 is absolutely huge. Massive difference.
Tom would like, the ball that he's closest to, he'd like to snick this into the middle with the right-hand side, come off the top cushion and maybe drop onto the plant. He's not dropped onto the plant, but what he can do is take the one from the pocket, because I'm not sure the one, the 3 there at the top of the screen, the middle one, I'm not sure if that goes past the other one into the top left corner. If it does, then that's fine. If it doesn't, he'll have to take the one furthest to the left of your screen now first, to obviously make room for it. So as you can see there, I'm not sure it goes, and if it does, it's very tight. So the fact that he's gone that way, I'm not sure about that. I think he should have took the other one away from the pocket first, then played the one into the middle, then played the one up the rail into a clear pocket.
Yeah.
Now what he's going to do is he's either going to screw it out when there's no reason to touch a ball that already goes, or he's going to drop it into the middle, which to me looks quite tight. And he certainly won't be able to do anything with the cue ball, so he has to get a good cue ball off this if he's playing it in the middle. So he's ended up back to where I said, by stunning around the back of it.
Yeah.
So he's ended up back there just by taking the ball, them 2 balls in the opposite order. Just wants to nip the cue ball back a little bit here, because if he stops it dead, he'll just be the wrong side of the red. So he'd like to just nip it back a couple of inches so he can just get the cue ball sort of down towards where the white line's marked on the table. And decelerated on that a little bit, and he's having a bit of a shake of his head, and he's not. He'll still pot the black, but
another couple of inches would have been ideal. But it's just gonna have to drop this red in now and play the black from.
It is only little things, but it is those little things that ultimately can accumulate into a miss.
Yeah.
You know, any slightly bad contact on this and you're missing it because it's hitting the near knuckle first. Now, if the cue ball's on that white line there, you see on the black spot of that white line, it's unmissable.
Yeah.
I don't expect him to miss it, by the way. I'm just saying that if it's a bit further down, he can't possibly miss it.
And he doesn't, no mistakes, and he now trails by 1 frame. Ronan McCarthy's leveled things up at 4 frames all. Phil Harrison, he was 2-0 down against Scott Gillespie. He's now 3-2 ahead. And Adam Davis is 3-2 against Liam Dunster. So remember, these are the last 4 matches on the loser's side. These are to qualify for the last 8. The 4 winners from here will meet the 4 players who already await them. Those 4 players are Jason Shaw, Neil Raybone, Mark Farnsworth, and Carl Morris.
Frame 8, Tom to break, trailing 4 frames to 3. Time running. Ball spotted. Red ball's in play. Time running.
Absolute beast of a break there from Tom. Just, I don't know how to describe it really. I've run out of words. It is brutal. I think I call it industrial. That's probably quite a good word for it. It's just like what were the old films, the rank films, where they had the big gong where the bloke just smashes the gong. It's just like that, and there's reverberations around the room.
And that's a prime example of how English 8-ball especially can just turn on its head in the space of 10 minutes.
Yeah, 4-0 down. And it would have been interesting to see what the bookie would have offered him running there. I think Darren would have probably been a 1-5, 1-6 favourite. Probably Tom's back now as favourite.
I think this is the right shot from Tom. Everyone would maybe think to play the red in the middle of the table. That's the right shot, because he's played it as a two-way shot. If he under-hits it and lands near the rail, well, he can still just clip the one into the middle if he likes, but he was playing it as a two-way shot because the right red of those two obviously goes into the top right corner, it goes into the middle. Yeah. For me, that was the right way. The black goes into both corners.
Giving yourself options.
Yeah, that was definitely the right way there.
So, Do we have a redraw for the last 8?
Yeah, so it's just redrawn, so we don't know who plays who yet. It's a redraw and then it's a straight draw, so it's not redrawn every round like FA Cup style. It's just redrawn once and then that's your draw from the quarterfinals.
The other thing I was going to ask, do you know, someone asked me earlier and I wasn't sure of the answer, the Calcutta, so there was a situation during the last round, there were 3 players at the same point in the Calcutta. So if all 3 players had lost, so say Stefan lost as well, who then becomes...
Yeah, for the best placed non-elite.
Yeah.
So what happens there is they use the result of your last round in frame score.
Okay.
So if for example, Stefan was to lose 8-4 and the other guy was to lose 8-5, obviously the other guy with the 1 frame difference, if you like, picks up the money.
Right.
If it's then level on frames, if they were to both lose, say, 8-4, then the money would be split.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, sorry about that. We just obviously ran the ads for the sponsors there. Yeah, I was just saying about the Calcutta. Obviously, Nick asked me about what had happened if, say, 2 non-elite players were tied, who'd get the bonus, and it goes on a count back on frames of just not through the whole tournament, which can't, because someone may come through the loser side and one may come through the winners. It goes just on a count back of frames from the previous match. So if one was to lose 8-5 and one was to lose 8-4, that 1 frame difference. And I think that's a little bit harsh. I think if they're in the same round, then just split the money. Is my opinion on it, but either way, that money will now go to Stefan Rosidi, because Callum Singleton lost to Tom from 7-5 up, by the way. And he did miss 2 really good chances from, I think, 7-6. But, yeah, that definitely goes to Stefan. So, that time, even worse than the first 2 breaks, he loses the cue ball to the other side and actually nearly goes in off in the opposite middle. So, he's hitting the break like a bag of nails at the minute. In all fairness, hitting him like he's hitting him, you don't deserve to pot 1. Sometimes, though, when you do catch him like that and hit him bad, there's no obviously logic to it. You do sometimes make 1, and another time you can absolutely flush the front ball, stop the cue ball in the middle of the table, or stun it up the line, whatever you're trying to do, and you don't make 1. There isn't a set rule that says if you hit him nice, you're guaranteed to make a ball. But hitting him nice does give you the best chance.
And that's been the key factor to this turnaround, really, isn't it? This Darren's break. It's let Tom back in the door.
That was the right shot from Tom, because pushing the red out of the way means he gets on his bad yellow, means the black then goes. but he's just hit it by he just, I think at the top of the backswing, as he struck the cue ball, he just come up a little bit, which meant he hit the cue ball a little bit too high. He wanted to hit the red on the other side rather than the bottom side. And if he's not on one of the two long yellows, then he's got no shot. I can't quite tell from here if he's on it, but it doesn't look like he is.
Gareth, it's interesting because, I mean, you said earlier that you're a kind of connoisseur of cue actions, etc. And it's, you know, you find it very easy to look at players and if they've made a mistake, to understand how that mistake happened. And are you able to do that with yourself as well? So, you know, if you're playing a big game over in China and you're missing balls, you're able to understand why and self-critical.
Yeah, for sure. And you have to do that. You have to know what you're doing wrong in order to be able to put it right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I mean, I bet that's fairly unique. I doubt there's many players around that.
Yeah, maybe not, and I definitely do. And that goes with everything. You know, you have to understand exactly if something isn't working. You have to understand why it's not working.
Yeah.
And every player should, you know, even down to the break. You know, if every table breaks differently, and I remember, you know, back in the English 8-ball days, if the break wasn't working, and you know, I was having a match where, you know, I've had 3 or 4 dry breaks, breaking from a certain spot, hitting the cue ball a certain way, striking the break in a certain way, I would change it because, you know, you have to understand where the balls are going, especially with this Magic Rack. You can understand which balls are tracking towards where. The 2 balls at the bottom of the pack are coming off the top cushion and kicking them out of the way. So if I hit them at this pace, the cue ball, the cue at a certain trajectory, at a certain strike on the cue ball, I can manipulate them to do this, this, and this. That's all part of.
Yeah, I think Shane Thompson mentioned that earlier. He said, you know, this is obviously a new concept. The new rack and players haven't really had a chance to play with it, but the people who are going to get the big advantage are the people that are trying it out and trying to work out what's happening and trying to perfect that break.
Oh yeah, that's a loose one. I can't believe he didn't just play that over right-hand side and top the cue ball sort of around the 2 angles. That was definitely the wrong shot selection there from Tom, but in all fairness to him, the ref was counting down from 5, and I think he struck the cue ball on like 1 or 2 seconds. He'd obviously used his extension. But yeah, just going back to the point with that, obviously, as the time goes on, players will obviously practice with it and work out some sort of formula on the break, I've no doubt. But when they were testing out this rack, when the guy was over here, and he asked me to sort of test it and to see what I thought of it. He was racking them up for me, and I probably hit, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 breaks, and I'd worked out where the wing balls were going, what the top balls were doing off the rail, just by having a sort of 10 or 15 minutes breaking off with it. And the interesting thing is, after speaking to all of the players this weekend, Jason Shaw was the only one that I spoke to that had worked out exactly what I'd worked out with the break. He knew that those balls were tracking towards the middle, and he also knew, without me saying anything, we were just talking about it, he also said to me about the 2 balls coming off the top cushion and sometimes kick them away from the middle. And you know, to me, that's something that I liked, and I respected, because, you know, he's watching, he's working out what's happening.
It is, but I think also that's a little bit to do with the fact that you've both used them before, and you kind of know that there's something there. They're going to. I mean, everyone else, all they're seeing is a piece of plastic on the table that's holding the balls together, and I don't think they've really developed the understanding of actually we can manipulate this to our own benefit.
Yeah.
That will happen.
Yeah, no, it's a good point from all the other English 8-ball players that haven't played any American pool, haven't played no Chinese, wouldn't have used the Magic Rack or the short rack before. But you know, Darren, 10 years or more, has been using it. Chris the same. So they will be a little bit more understanding of it. But no, I completely get your point. The players that only played English 8-ball would never have played a tournament with this short rack before. So
they've never. At the end of the day, every every break is so random because you racket them in a triangle and there's little gaps in there somewhere. You might get them sticking together sometimes, and other times you don't. So it's almost a little bit of a leap of faith. But now, all the balls are sticking together. All the balls are touching, and they just need to develop this concept that actually, you know, now we can start perfecting the break rather than just hoping a ball goes in.
Well, to just take it up another notch and just to throw another spanner in the works, well, it probably takes it up a few notches, which is something which is really interesting. Is that I was actually talking to Van Bonen about it, and he was saying that in some of the 9-ball events, they can manipulate the pack by purposely leaving certain gaps from certain balls. I think it may have been 8-ball actually that he was talking about, that they can leave anyway certain gaps in certain places of the pack. So for example, the back 2 balls leave a little gap and then the one in the middle. He didn't actually tell me the structure of it, but he was saying that they can purposely leave gaps in the pack that can manipulate where the balls are going. Now, that's obviously taking it to a whole new level, and that's also arguably taking it to cheating. Because if your purpose, you know, all the balls should be touching and they should be racked up in a dead straight line in exactly the same place. Now, if you're manipulating that to make balls go in a certain direction, then obviously that isn't right. But just to give you an idea of how it can work by leaving gaps, getting them touched, that is obviously something that they've practiced and worked out. If that gap's there, that ball can go there. Now, that is obviously...
Just to say something that kind of underlines the point I was making. Darren, Jason, and Chris are the only 3 players that I've seen throughout this event who, after the ref racks the balls, they go down and they just look at the pack. They're not looking to see if everything's touching. They're just looking to see if there is a gap in there and if they can use that to their advantage. I mean, Johnny Archer, I think, was a massive exponent for using. So you rack a 9-ball triangle, you look over the top of it, and if he sees some gaps on one side, he'll know which way to break, which side to break from, and he'll know what power to put into the shot. And it's called reading the rack. And the Americans use it all the time. And I don't think there's any coincidence that those 3 players that have been fairly prolific in America are the only ones that have tried in any way to read the rack. Because everyone else, they just, as I say, you just batter the front and hope they go in and hope the power transfers through the back of the pack.
I like it because it adds a whole new dimension of skill. That's what it adds. It's not just about anymore hitting the break as hard as you possibly can with as much control as you can and hope you make a ball. There's a skill factor now. I understand it opens a huge minefield of arguments of, well, all the balls should be touching, so if they're not, the ref should rack them back up until they are. It should be the same for everyone. I get all of that, but the point is you can manipulate what the balls do by hitting them in a certain place at a certain speed with a certain strike on the cue ball. So Tom absolutely crunched that and made a ball. And they were a little bit messy. I say messy. Yellows are obviously the balls, and he has a yellow on the left-hand side of the table. He obviously has one yellow that doesn't go anywhere that's tied up on the top rail, but the yellow to the left-hand side of the table, if he can get obviously good on that, so somewhere near the middle pocket or somewhere on the line, he's not got the line to do it now, but somewhere on the line that the cue ball's on now, you can obviously top it in and bump the bad ball out. And I think he will either go into it off this ball or play my shot and screw up to somewhere near the middle to try and leave an angle on the 1 into the left corner there to top the bad ball out. He has an option to go into it now. It is a big target to go into it now. He's got 2 balls. He'd like to hit the red. If he hits the red, he's going to push the yellow towards the pocket. He'd like to hit the red cushion first, actually. If he goes right-hand side, back cushion first, and kicks the red from behind, he will definitely land on the yellow, and he could even pop the yellow off the red. So I'm talking about his yellow that's tied up here on the
Yeah.
top rail. Oh, he's just going to wedge him in.
Yeah, I was just thinking while you were talking there that, I mean, had Tom had a yellow sat over the middle bag, I think he would have played that developing shot. But the problem is, if he used the ball that we were talking about to the left hand corner to get it out.
I understand
there's
what
a
you're
lot
saying.
of traffic. I mean, he had to plant into the bottom pocket, but there was a lot of traffic on the table.
I understand, but there was a lot of options. I wasn't just saying it blind, and he had an option of, okay, he goes into it. The first option is he lands on the ball he's kicking into.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest result. At worst case, he's got the 3-ball plant down this right hand side of the table. As a third option, he lands on the double on the one on the side rail. He did have options.
Yeah.
Well, as it's turned out, it was the right decision. Darren's been really lucky there because he's missed it and he's just bumped the red in front of the yellow, which
Tom's got 2,
causes him a little bit of an headache now because obviously he's got 2 balls that are tied up.
He'd love to be able to get him out with one shot. I don't think he can. I was just looking at the table then. No, it's just looking at way maybe he could double the yellow at the top of the table down on top of it, but it wasn't there. Darren showed against Jason Shaw that he's a pretty good tactician at World Rules. I think that he, if he'd have taken that game a little bit more tactical, I think he'd have had a better chance going toe-to-toe with Jason when Jason already had that lead. As soon as it went tactical, Jason was really stumbling. He played one shot when they were in a real tactical, bad tactical frame, and I don't think he realised that he was leaving a foul snooker, and it was just a simple clearance for Jason. And then later on, he forgot to nominate and gave 2 shots, and that was another frame that he gifted Darren. And those 2 examples, for me, just told me that Darren should have probably just tried to take it a bit more tactical. This game, very different because Tom's home is World Rules. So,
yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that, and the only thing I will say is that sometimes you're dictated to by the way that the balls come out.
Yeah.
You can't just set out your stall to say, right, I want to play every single frame tactically here, because obviously if the balls come out, ultimately it's about potting the balls and potting the black and winning the frame, and that's what you need to do. You can't, when the ball's there, you can't decide to just cover the pocket for no reason. So now Tom's played my shot. Tom played my shot there off the ball over the pocket where he was exactly a couple of shots before.
Yeah.
And it's come out nasty. He hasn't landed on it. He can't play the double as I suggested because the red's come up and blocked the double, and it's also blocked the ball down the rail for the plant.
Yeah.
It couldn't have really gone much worse for him, to be fair. And he doesn't really have a serious amount of control having this bottom pocket covered, because obviously all the balls can be potted into other pockets. So Tom's gone from being massively in control of this frame to it now being back wide open.
He didn't really know what to do there, and with the referee counting the clock down, he's just trying to tie these couple of balls up. But
yeah, he just wanted to make sure that this red didn't go into the left corner. That was the only objective of that shot. And so he just had a little shake of the head there, and I think he's entitled to have the shake of his head there, because when he played that cannon, it couldn't have gone much worse. That's a clever shot from Darren.
Yeah, very good. Covered the path to the yellow.
And left him no shot on the one he's closest to. Even though Darren hasn't obviously played this for a long time, but all of his life he did grow up playing World Rules. Or certainly once the rules changed from the old rules, he did. And obviously all the success he had at English 8 ball was all at World Rules. So you don't forget how to ride a bike.
No. It's, from what I've seen over this weekend, he's as sharp as a tack. It's, I guess if there's any criticism, it has been just his ball control, and he said that himself. He's just still not quite got to grips with the way
and that's completely understandable. I completely understand that as well, you know, because I don't play an English pool and I have the odd frame. I mean, I've probably played a handful of times in 6 years, and when I do, that's exactly how I feel. That it's your cue ball control, because, like I said before, when the human body is under pressure, it naturally reverts back to what comes natural to it, and these reaction of these balls definitely won't come natural to Darren. So he's going to pot the red into the middle. He knows the white's going to obviously bump the yellow, and I think what he wants to do is bump the yellow half ball and let the cue ball track across the face of the reds to land on the red into the same middle pocket as he's going to be potting this. That's his only shot.
It's 3 other matches going on, and there's just nothing between any of them. Stefan Rosidi was 6-4 ahead. It's now 6 apiece. Phil Harrison leads Scott Gillespie 5-4. Liam Dunster leads Adam Davis 4-3. So there's just one frame in all of those matches, apart from the top one.
Yeah, and the Stefan Rosidi game against Farnsworth, it must have been a good standard, because they're on the 13th frame now. As you can see, all the others there, they're still into single figures. They've sort of played 4 or 5 frames more than every other match. So that tells me that that's been a good standard. Well, there's certainly been no tactical frames anyway.
Yeah. What I've noticed increasingly over this weekend is, and especially last night in the Farnsworth Melling game, there was a couple of instances where it was just so easy to take a negative approach and take control of the game and almost guarantee yourself the frame.
Yeah.
Or there was an opportunity to take a more aggressive route, far more risky, and every time those players just threw caution to the wind and went for the out.
Yeah.
Not a negative thought in their minds.
Yeah, which comes from, in all fairness, you know, you couldn't have had 2 more attacking players really, so that comes from that. But with a die-hard World Rules player, you know, playing for this set amount of money, the rules do lend themselves to exactly what you're saying. Sometimes you can play a shot that, okay, you might not win the frame then, but 20 minutes later you're certain to win.
Yeah.
While we were saying that, Darren has played a really good shot, the shot before that, to leave himself dead straight on that ball. And he's left himself the perfect angle here. So you can see where he's pointing the tip there. And now he's pointing his tip there because he's going to pop the red into the middle and stun off the cushion a little bit right hand side and kick the yellow. I like just playing a screw shot onto the yellow direct.
Yeah.
And that's why he should have played my shot.
I agree entirely. I was looking at that thinking, why is he going rail first? I mean, it's those...
Wrong shot. Oh, what's he done there? Oh, George. It was definitely somewhere on the top rail, I know that. Hold on, so the referee here has picked the yellow ball up by mistake. Let me just see if we can get this back a second. We're just going to bring up the replay just so we can put it back exactly where it was. And so the ref obviously picked the white ball up, and picked the yellow up instead of the white ball. And it is important where it went back for this exact reason now, because he was going to play on it this first shot. So it was important that obviously it went back where it was. It wasn't as though like it was irrelevant. See, Tom's played a good shot there, and you can see he's obviously kept absolutely dead straight on that. You saw his head didn't move, nothing moved other than his back arm. Okay, the guys are just taking a toilet break, so I'll be back when they are.
Normally we just, if somebody asks to go. Frame 11. Darren to break, 5 frames all. Time running.
Nothing between the two players. Ronan McCarthy's on the hill against Stefan Rosidi. He's 7 frames to 6 up. Phil Harrison's still locked together with Scott Gillespie at 5 frames each. Liam Dunster, Adam Davis, 4 frames each. And this one, 5 each. So, such close games, it just shows the skill levels on show. So closely matched. good opportunity for Tom to take the lead. It's not the easiest of finishes. There's a lot of traffic through the middle of the table, but you fancy him for this one, and he will be taking the lead for the first time in the match.
I think he can just screw back. Yeah, good shot. Obviously, when you leave the cue ball close to a rail, it limits what you can do with the cue ball. The black does go into the bottom right corner, because if it didn't, he would have stunned into it then. So it does definitely go. And you can see
Looks pretty simple and straightforward from here. Do you see him taking the one to middle now?
Well, I think he is going to take the one into middle now, and then play the other one, but I think I would have gone the other way. I think I would have left the 2 on the left-hand side to the last.
Yeah.
And then, because I just think he's guaranteed to be dead straight on the black off that.
Yeah.
Where this way, he's going to have to leave, obviously, the one closest to where his hand is to the last. And although that's fine, it's okay. He has got to play some sort of positional shot where, had this have been his last ball, it's literally just a simple drop and stun the black in from dead straight.
There you go. You got a great camera angle of the black, and somewhere just.
If he's come just off straight on this, he has got to play a screw shot, and he left it slightly short. So I don't expect him to miss it, obviously, but if the cue ball was where that little chalk mark is that you can see just to the left of the cue ball, it's unmissable. And there you go.
Yeah. Those are the tiny, tiny margins.
I did say he had to, leaving that ball to the last, left a shot to play, and he didn't play the shot very well, and ultimately left the cue ball a little bit short, which I did say left the black missable. You can see where that chalk mark is there in the centre of the table, the big sort of predominant one there. That's where he wanted the cue ball, and had he ever gone the way I said, and he could have just dropped the one up the cushion last, that's where he would have had the cue ball.
10 seconds. 5, 4.
Absolutely not a ball that you'd have expected Tom Cousins to miss, but you know, there's a little bit of pressure. There's a lot riding on this game, and you know, as we say, those are the margins.
Yeah,
a few inches across, and that was a gimme.
And just the shot he just played there, I don't know if you noticed, but the cue ball absolutely flew off the top cushion there. And in all fairness to Darren, the match before at 10-all, I think, although he did play a bad shot in the sense of to get on the black where he chose the wrong line of the cue ball, I do think he got a big bounce off the rail. And he definitely got a big bounce there off the same cushion at probably the same point that he contacted the rail in the last match at 10-all against Shaw. He definitely got a big bounce that time because the cue ball's just finished in absolutely no man's land. And I do think he got a slightly big bounce when he snookered himself.
This is no gimme, this finish. These two balls at the bottom of the table clearly don't pass into the bottom right. So
they don't, and that's why he may choose to play the snooker. He may choose to just snick this and just drop him in behind it. What's he doing?
I don't think there's any shot there, is there?
I think he wants to just bump it over the pocket, I think, but he needs to be careful.
Oh.
It went on the inside of it. I didn't think there was that much gap behind,
no, it didn't look like
behind
it from the camera angle, did it?
Yeah. He's good now. only thing I will say is the shot he played before then, he obviously wanted to bump the other one a little bit further down the rail, so he's going to leave the one that's on the rail until last. Oh, I'm telling you, that top cushion is definitely bouncing. %100%. The last couple of shots I've seen where the cue ball's gone off that top cushion, it's definitely come off quicker.
And this must have been a tricky little clearance.
A big psychological frame this as well, because good shot. It's a good shot.
I can tell you that Ronan McCarthy has beaten Stefan Rosidi, and he's progressed through into the last 8. Stefan Rosidi has done himself a lot of credit over the last couple of days.
You see, this finish here has just progressively got worse and worse to the point now where he's not landed on the black. One of the matches I commentated with you yesterday, Nick, we talked about that snowball effect.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happened in this frame. It's like he's been playing killer.
See Kyle Donahue in the background watching on. Just the left of him, Paul Riley, all took part in this event. So, I mean, it is a simple safety shot if Darren wishes to, but I don't know if he thinks he can cut it down the rail. No, he's going to go for the safety option.
I don't think it cuts down the rail. He had no choice but to play that. Now, if I was playing Chinese 8-ball, I'd be snicking off this and leaving the white in the jaws of the pocket and leaving the black glued to the rail, and that is a vile shot, where on here he won't play it because it's potable. Is he looking at playing it the other way and leaving him long? Oh, I'm not sure about that one. You know, the reason I don't like that shot is because if he doesn't choose to go for it, which I don't think he will, I think he can just dump it to the middle of the back cushion.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he can hit it sort of 3/4 ball and push it to the top rail and leave the cue ball roughly where the black is, or maybe just a bit further forward. And if he keeps distance, which he obviously will, between cue ball and object ball, it leaves a tough shot for Tom.
Scott Gillespie has now taken the lead against Phil Harrison.
Didn't like the shot, I said.
Who's going to blink first? The bookie looking eagerly on. I know he breathed a deep sigh of relief when Darren ran out of position against Jason Shaw in the last match and lost, because that was going to cost him quite heavily. Mark Fleming gurning, talking to Max Nosko.
He's going to snick off it and leave distance. And he hasn't played it very well. He's got the cue ball nowhere near the top rail, and he's got the black nowhere near the side rail. Once again there, the countdown is sort of, last time the countdown did Tom, he played a bad shot, and that time he played a bad shot. Okay, it's still a tough black, but it should have been a lot tougher. He should have hit it thinner, which means that the black was tight on the side rail and the cue ball's tight on the top rail, then it is tough.
This becomes a big shot.
It's a very big shot.
What a great pot.
There's the cue ball.
He's okay. He's okay. What a great shot from Darren.
Really, really good black, that.
Liam Dunster's 5-4 up against Adam Davis. All 4 games, well, 3 games now, that are left running are all being streamed. So if you wish to watch either Phil Harrison and Scott Gillespie or Adam Davis, Liam Dunster, you can find all of those streams at Players Pool Events. We mentioned the bookie a second ago. He's running odds all through each event. His name's Jed Ronan. You can find him. He's the Winning Post bookie. And also you'll find all his prices on Players Pool Events on the page on Facebook. While you're there, please do give us a like, and why not head across to Beard Productions and also click like there. We'd love to add you to the community. It's all about building a big community now for the Players Pool Events, for the Supreme Series, and letting people know it's happening.
Yeah, and the guys obviously at Beard do a fantastic job bringing you everything that they're bringing you this weekend. So obviously it's a big thanks to them, and it's down to them that you're getting the coverage that you're getting with 4 stream tables, with the quality picture that you're getting. Just going back to that last shot there with Darren potting the black. That's one thing that has definitely never been in question with Darren, and that's his bottle. He's got as much as anybody. At his best. Unbelievably good under pressure. Jesus, what about that for a break? Cue ball jumped about a foot in the air and parked around the middle of the table. I think that was the anger of missing the easy black in the last frame. Taking a look at this break, what about that? So he obviously stunned it, but then the cue ball had a forward rotation. So obviously when it bounced on the table, it gripped forward, hence how it just sort of stops dead. Not easy to strike the cue ball like that. It's like a hard stun, but with a forward motion, like a top spin, that obviously grips when it lands and stops it dead. Hard to find the balance of that, of not getting too much stun and too much topspin. Does it go?
No, I don't think it does. Maybe wrong. He's having a close look at it.
Tom's having a close look, but from his initial reaction,
no, I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
He took a step back and sort of shook his head, which means it's tight. And if it's tight, it means he can only roll it in. And if he rolls it in, that means that the cue ball's sort of close to the side rail. So, well, he's playing it.
Yeah.
I think he's probably more playing it over the hole than in.
Oh, it was there.
What we're on about, he's done a Phil Harrison
Yeah,
to us there.
he really has. It's funny because from that other camera angle, it looked like the entire pocket was covered, but he absolutely flew in.
Oh, he drilled it in. Oh, he drilled it in that much that he's actually come a little bit too high on the red. Would have liked to have took the top 2 out and maybe left this one. Hasn't got that option now because he's bridging over the black, so has to take the one into the middle.
This cue ball's going to be going on a trip now.
I think he'll just check it.
Okay, he's left the long one. I thought he was going to.
Oh, I can't believe he didn't check that.
Yeah.
I think he should. I think he's played with the wrong side. I think he needed to play it with right-hand side, so he hits the side rail, top rail, and then the cue ball just like tracks up in a straight line towards the red.
Towards the blue spot, yeah.
Yeah, up towards the blue spot, through the gap of the black and the yellow. If he played that with a lot of check, he could have got much closer to this. But backed himself to just drill it in, and has left a really good angle on the last red. So he'll just punch this in off the top cushion. I personally would prefer to use 2 rails here. So I would prefer to use top rail, side rail. Find it just guarantees you a shot and just brings the white in at the angle you want it to be coming in at.
Scott Gillespie is now on the hill, and Phil Harrison is very much at risk.
There you go, he's played it, sorry, there you go, he's played it my way, 2 cushions, which is definitely the right way to play it because that takes the middle pocket out of the equation as well.
Yeah, the pre-tournament favourite in Phil Harrison. He was 6-1 with the bookies. Tom Cousins was up there. I think he was 7s. Mark Farnsworth also 7s. And they're all still here, but Phil Harrison very much at risk against one of Scotland's premier players in Scott Gillespie.
Just see the shot he played there. Obviously potted it with left hand side to straighten the cue ball up. See, there's a couple of people in now watching this match. There's the same amount of people. There's more people actually on the other side of the arena.
Partab Singh, you see, eagerly watching. Maybe he's had a little bet. I saw them crowding around the bookmaker before the off. And you see just either side of the trophy, as I previously mentioned, Carla Donahue resting his head on his chin. Paul Riley has made the trip down from the northeast to the left of the trophy. All the players that were in the tournament who've exited. They'll all be back for the second event on July the 13th. Just 2 months away. One of the balls maybe just not quite sat in its locator. Darren asking the ref just to tap them in.
So yeah, Ronan, one of my best friends, has made it through to the quarter-final after what was a shocking loss, to be honest, to Carl Morris. Not the fact that he lost, it was the way that he lost made it a shocking loss. I actually commentated on the end of that match. Well, I commentated, I think, from about 7-6. And Ronan had an unbelievably easy finish at 9 each. And then he had another, which he missed. And then went 10-9 down. He then had another unbelievably easy finish at 10-all, which he then missed to lose the match. So then coming off the back of that, having missed them chances, to have to go straight back on isn't easy. So he'll be glad to get the win there and no damage done. He's into the quarterfinals the same as everybody else.
Darren really putting the referee through his paces there. Inspecting the rack. He knows how important this break is. Interesting to see now. He's going across to the side.
He's going to cut break.
He's going to cut break.
Got to be careful he doesn't jump the cue ball off the table here. If he strikes down on it, the cue ball will be off. Oh, well, he didn't cut break. He didn't cut break. He broke from the side and again completely mishit the front ball because the cue ball flew off to the left. And he got that much topspin. I don't know if we can bring you that back or not, but he actually hits it with a load of topspin.
Bananaed onto the rail.
So it hit the rail and then bananaed into the middle. In his interview after he won last night, I saw, and he said that his match last night was the best that he'd played since he'd been back playing, and that his break was the key part of last night. Well, it's definitely a contrast of that today, because by far his break is the worst part of his game.
Spotted Neil Raybone walking across the back of the room. All the players just waiting patiently on the winner's side. They won't be in any hurry.
Yeah, and Neil was an absolute steal in the Calcutta, by the way. Obviously, this is his own venue.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot to be said for sleeping in your own bed at night, isn't there?
Yeah, I think he went for like £700 or £800 in the Calcutta. So
he's playing really well this weekend as well. We've not seen him on the stream yet on the main arena table, but I can tell you he's playing really well.
So I'm presuming that Phil Harrison has gone.
Yeah, I can confirm now that Phil Harrison has lost 8 frames to 5. So another massive name in the Calcutta. £4,000 he went for.
And just to put things into perspective there of the Calcutta, so you could buy Adam Davis, you could buy Neil Raybone, and you could buy Gareth Hibbert.
Yeah, and Clint.
And you could buy Clint Jansen for all around. That total for those 4 players was around £3,000, I think probably just over. Or you could buy Phil Harrison for 4.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the other players in the draw, I think Darren went for, was it around about 15? I think. You've got Stefan Rosidi, who was in a group. You know, I mean, these last players in the losers qualification, or even the players that are in the last, already through to the last 8. Jason Shaw, I think, 1,400, somewhere around about that figure. Carl Morris, £800. He waits on the winner's side. If you buy wisely, there's some great value to be had.
That's not a good shot from Tom. He wanted to be 2 inches further over, so he was straight, or at least with the angle where the cue ball was running to the rail. He's now going to have to bump into this red. And it's not nice to bump into, because it's one of them where he's got the option of just glancing across the face of it and bumping it out and letting the cue ball run towards the line to pot it in the same pocket, or to hit it full ball, obviously, to pot it in the other pocket. But the black doesn't go in the left middle. He's just whacked it.
Yeah.
Because he ran out of time again.
Ran out of time. Just get down and hit it.
But he was only on 4 seconds. I know you think 4 seconds, but when you're down on your shot, you know, I know you're panicking to hit it, but 4 seconds is quite a lot of time.
Yeah, it is.
He had time to queue up there.
Yeah.
Now, he is right-handed, so this is a stretch. I know he's a big lad, but that's a stretch, and he'll need to probably... Does the black go in the other corner? From that angle, I think it probably does. He's played this nice. Good shot.
That's perfect. That's a nice clearance from Tom.
And you may think, well, why did he screw that? Why did he screw that ball? And I can tell you the reason why is because when you strike at the middle of the cue ball, there's actually more of an area to miss the middle of the cue ball. Where the further you go down, the less there is to strike, so it's easier to actually find the middle of the cue ball, which is a point that not a lot of people sort of know, where when you're playing a pressure shot like that, if you come down the cue ball a little bit, you're actually, because obviously the cue ball's a circle.
Yeah.
So as you come down, the cue ball rounds, so you've actually got less room for error by striking the middle of the cue ball.
That's a really good point. So Tom Cousins is now on the hill. And he's got the break as well. Could that be the last shot that Darren Appleton plays?
Well, if Tom hits the break like he hit the last one, I think it will be. A decent crowd in now, watching the end of this. Obviously a couple of the matches have finished. in the other room, so as you can see, there's a lot of people coming to watch the conclusion of this.
Oh, wow.
That was a bit wild.
I mean, the cue ball just jumped straight in the air and
That's
flew back
exactly
in the
what it
pocket.
did the time before, though. It was just the difference this time was balls were rushing back towards it. They've cannoned it in. Reds are definitely the balls, because he can play the red off the yellow into the middle and move it away so the other red and the yellow goes. I think I'd be putting this at an angle behind the line to just bump the other red off the top of the yellow. I don't understand why he's putting the cue ball there. I don't understand why he doesn't play this with the other side, like 8 inches there, where his cue is there. That's where he needs to put it. That's it, he's seen it now. That's better, see, he can just bump the red there. See, on that angle, you can just bump the red off the top of the yellow.
Yep.
Just not quite thinking completely clearly at the minute out there, Darren. Because I expected him to spot that shot straight away. Has to be careful in playing the red off the yellow. If he catches it too thick, he could miss the red. Doesn't have to play it, of course. The black goes into the corner. The other red goes into the corner. Played it nice, though.
Yeah. Almost played it knuckle first, so nudged the ball out from behind.
I presume the black does go into the middle. Doesn't go into the corner, but I presume it does go into the middle. And if it does go into the middle, the red that's in the bottom half of this table is the perfect ball to leave until last.
Yeah, I think we should be able to get an angle on that. Yeah, there
Yeah,
you
it goes. So this red here, the closest to this pocket, closest to us, that's his last ball. Oh, he's playing cannons when he doesn't have to play cannons.
No.
What's he doing?
No.
I told you he's not thinking clearly. I could
He's really not.
I could just tell he wasn't thinking clearly. And I know you might think, oh, it's just a simple little thing, but obviously Darren Appleton should spot that shot straight away, and the fact that he didn't and almost played another shot tells me that he isn't thinking clearly.
Yeah, I was quite surprised he played it at any pace at all.
You just don't need to bump balls that already go.
No. Just making life a bit harder for himself. This is a key frame. He just needs to regroup. All these balls go, so...
Yeah, so he'll definitely be playing the one up the rail now, and he'll screw the cue ball back to somewhere near the middle pocket to leave himself dead straight on the other one in the middle. So this one up the rail, screw back to somewhere where that chalk mark is, near the middle pocket. And he's won, so this is effectively the black. If he pots this, it's 7-all. Perfect.
Liam Dunce is on the hill against Adam Davis. 2 Scotsmen in the last 8 if he wins that last frame.
Chose to leave the angle where you can just top off the side cushion. May just play it with a trace of right hand side to straighten the cue ball up. Watch the cue ball spin. Didn't really play it with any side actually, which means he's a little bit further away from the black, but
Nice clearance there from Darren. He takes it to 7 frames apiece.
There's been a lot of deciding frames.
There really has all weekend.
This weekend.
And now the 2 players shake hands. And all eyes now to Darren's break. It's been pretty horrendous all the way through. He needs to get a good one now.
Well, he can't hit him any worse than he has been hitting him, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think anything's got to be an improvement. He hasn't hit the front ball straight once in this whole match, I don't think. Now would be the right time to find it. And I've got a feeling that he will. I'm going break and clear.
Yeah, I fancy him to find one. Darren's too good a player just to keep hitting these breaks badly. I fancy him to find a good one here. So, Darren's poised. He's going to take a quick look at the rack. He's happy. He takes the cue ball from the referee, and now he's going to go back to his center break, having experimented from the side rail.
This is the right place for him to break from, in my opinion. Just gripped the cue a bit too tight, you know. When he broke, I could see that he squeezed the back of the cue. He squeezed the back of the cue a little bit too tight, which meant that they just didn't move properly. I mean, they went everywhere, but I don't know. I just knew that he'd squeezed the back of the cue a bit too tight. I could tell by the way the balls reacted. And the yellows are there. He's just got to pot the first one. I think he'd like to pot the yellow into this centre, the one that's closest to the black. But obviously the cue ball's on the rail, and I think that he's in off into the corner if he pots it. You can see that one there closest to the black. He wants to pot that one into the middle, where I think the cue ball's close to an off.
10 seconds.
So he's using his extension early again.
And he must be an off, because that's the reason why he's not even been back round to look at it. He's looked at it a couple of times and that's him done. Oh, he's playing the long one. Ooh, smelly. That's brilliant.
Great pot.
Very, very good.
Super cueing.
Yeah, very good. That was tough because obviously the cue ball's tight on the rail and it's easy to miss those thin. I know it was straight-ish, but it is easy to come across them a little bit. And get this back look. It's easy to miss this into the left side rail as we look, but it was right in the heart.
He just cued that so nicely, didn't he?
No, that's probably the best one he's hit of the whole match.
Just played through it beautifully.
So, you know the yellow that I said he wanted to pot first, that is the problem ball.
Yep.
The one that's closest to the black. I don't know if it passes into the left corner. Obviously I was talking about potting it into the left middle and I thought he was in off in the left corner. I don't know if it passes that red. If it doesn't, it means that obviously he has to take that red away first before he pots it. If it does pot into that left corner, well, actually, I can tell you it doesn't because I'm sitting right in line with it, and it doesn't pot into that left corner. So this frame's not over yet. I think he might pot this one into the corner and stun off the side cushion and try and land on the one down the rail next shot. I think he's going to punch off the side rail and try and get to the one down the rail next.
He's missed one.
Oh, he's playing it with running side as well.
Yeah, that made it a tough shot. He was trying to get on that difficult ball into centre.
Well, he did play well, actually. He did. He stunned off the side rail with left-hand side, and he got the cannon perfect. But obviously, the most important thing is that you pot the ball.
He's had a bit of fortune because that was a dead set plant to top right, and the yellows just crept in front of those two. So
yeah, I don't know if it did touch them or not, to be honest. But either way, if that was a dead set plant and that yellow doesn't go there, he's lost. You can see it is a dead set plant if the yellow's not there, but I don't know if it was before.
Yeah, no, it was.
It was, right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
wow.
I looked at it earlier.
He's been unbelievably lucky there, because if that doesn't go there, he's lost a frame.
Yeah. And sure enough, Darren just gave a little shake of his head a second ago, I think.
Yeah, because obviously he's struggling to find a shot. There is a shot, but it's horrible to play. So the two reds that he's closest to, he could play it as though he's playing the plant, screw the white off the side rail, top rail, and get him behind the two on the left side cushion. Great shot.
That is a super shot. A little rip of applause from the audience. They recognise that.
There's a shot, though, for Tom. He'd rather it be black ball rules playing the shot, but there is a shot. So if we can just get you a view of the table a minute. So the yellow that's basically on the brown spot, or just below the brown spot, you can pot that, stun off the top cushion, and obviously flick his bad ball out. Well,
he's going to be rushed again. He's taken his extension.
See? And he's because he was so.
Is that going to drop? No. He keeps leaving it so late, and he's rushed in his shot. He actually didn't.
Yeah, I don't know why he's.
Bit
and
longer.
you know, the strange thing was there when the referee George said 10 seconds. Tom didn't really even sort of pick up any pace. He just strolled around the table and did what he would normally do, and then all of a sudden found himself like hitting the cue ball on 2 seconds again.
Yeah.
It's probably like the 4th time in this match he's hit it on 2 seconds.
10 seconds.
Got to be careful here, Darren.
Trying to get a snooker in behind those two reds.
Yeah, and the reason why I said he's got to be careful, why the red's gone in an awkward place, but Tom will definitely be looking to disturb the right corner.
Yeah. Actually, where that red's gone, it covers a path for the yellow, but it's not in a terrible place for Darren. He can still do something with it.
No, he'll be over the moon to see where that red's gone.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't play it there. He just tried to get the cue ball in behind these two reds, as I suggested the shot before, but it's a bonus where the red's gone.
So Adam Davis has won a frame, but he still trails by 2. Liam Dunster 7-5.
Well, you know, I was going to say, oh, that's a great shot. You know, I was going to say, Nick, before, when Tom played the one down the cushion and you said, is it going to drop? I was actually going to say, even if it does drop, it's okay because he had that shot, cushion first, to play that. Now, what the important thing here is, he has to pot the one over the pocket and he has to finish dead straight. So he's going to pot the one over the hole, and he needs the cue ball basically level with the middle pocket. If it's level with the middle pocket, he's won. Don't be too long. If it's too long here, then he can't land on it into the corner. And that's... Oh, he didn't play it 2 rails, but that's perfect. Oh, he caught this too thin, and the cue ball hit the top cushion, then hit the side knuckle, hence why it's out in the middle of the table. So, He couldn't have put that better with his hand, but he'll just land high on this and just play a little soft stun shot into the red.
And that was a great opening shot from Tom to give himself this great opportunity in this deciding frame.
You know what? He's just come like with one of those horrible little sort of screwy little stun shots into the red. If he gets hold of it too much, he could slip past it. If he doesn't get hold of it enough, he could come inside the black. Played it well.
Yeah, really nice. And it's Tom Cousins. And he has taken a really circuitous route to navigate himself through the loser's side after getting knocked out on Friday night. He's played a lot of games. And it's him that progresses through into the last 8. We say a fond farewell to Darren Appleton. We'll see him again in July. Thanks for taking part in the event. It's he's just played a magnificent event so far. Probably just his break let him down on reflection during that match. If he was breaking well, he would probably have won that one. Do you agree?
Yeah, probably. Although Tom wasn't particularly breaking well at the start of the match. I think he found a little bit towards the end, even though he did get kicked and off. And it was a match of bad breaks, really. Certainly at the start, and from Darren's part, he never hit a good break in the whole match. And yeah, you're right. He didn't break well, and but played certainly a lot better than I thought he would play in this event, given it was his first tournament back. I know he has been practicing for 3 or 4 weeks, but practice is obviously nothing like playing in a tournament. So definitely played better than I thought, and the pre-tournament favourite has obviously come around the hard way. But it doesn't really say how, but it does say who is in the quarterfinals, and that's the main thing now. There's gonna, well, after those matches finish, there's eight players that have, whichever way they've got there, and the tournament now starts again. It does, yeah. And we're going to head across the studio in a second. This is quite a rare thing to get Tom Cousins talking about anything, so we're going to get an interview with Tom Cousins very, very shortly.
Well, congratulations, Tom, on a tough match there against Darren Appleton. I suppose you haven't played much of Darren because he was slightly before your time, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think I only played him once at one of the old JFKs.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that's the only time I played him. So.
But it was a good performance. I mean, I think you lost a couple of rounds back and you fought your way through. You had a tough one against Callum the round before, which you had a chance of going out in that one.
Yeah, I think that's 7 matches now since I lost to Rob.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show the double elimination works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long way back, but you now start at an even keel now. You were the same with everybody else in the last 8 for the live draw.
Yeah.
One question I did want to ask you was the Calcutta, you've gone for the most money.
Yeah.
Does that add any more pressure to you when you're out there?
A little bit, yeah, because I don't want to cost anyone £5,000, but to be honest, I'm just there for me, really. So,
yeah. Well, you've won it.
If I win it for them, that's a bonus, but...
Yeah, well, you've won them £3,000 of their money back. So,
was it? Oh.
So he's on 3,000 already, so... If you win again, he's on profit, so you bought well. But best of luck. We'll do the live draw just after the Liam Dunster match. That's going on the minute against Adam Davis. It's a close match. It is on one of the other streams, and then we'll get the live draw in the arena. Okay, thanks very much, mate.
Cheers, Lee.
Well done.
Thanks, mate.